Hey developers, today we are looking at Svelte. So I've gotten a lot of requests for this. Svelte is a compiler for JavaScript. A lot of people call it a framework, but it's sort of a framework, sort of not. We're going to talk more about it. I'm going to give you an introduction of Svelte, talk about some of the cool things it has, and also do some comparisons to Vue.js because I think a lot of people are looking at Svelte as an alternative to Vue. So we'll discover that and we'll talk more about that as we go along. Hey, and if you don't know, my name is Erik. I'm a full-stack software developer. I'm also the author of a few books, and I'm a big fan of frameworks and web development, so make sure if you guys like that type of content, click that subscribe button and go ahead and thumbs up it. Go ahead and smash that thumbs up button. If you don't like it, smash that thumbs down button. That's cool. Either way, I really appreciate it. And also, I want to hear from you guys. What do you think of Svelte? Leave a comment in the comments section below. Tell me what you guys think about Svelte, because I'm really interested. So as I said, Svelte has been copying some things from React, copied some things from Vue. It's really interesting. And as I mentioned at the beginning, it's not really a framework. It tells you right in the description here that it is a compiler step. So basically it compiles itself out. So you write it in this really easy syntax. It's similar to Vue. And then this build step where it compiles it out. So you get this really small amount of JavaScript for your front end app. So it's kind of interesting that way. This is they call it the cybernetically enhanced web apps. I think that's kind of just a funny slogan. It doesn't really mean anything, but I really like that. There's no virtual DOM. You know, in some other frameworks, they have you're doing like these changes to the virtual DOM. It doesn't do anything like that, but it is reactive. So you can make changes in your JavaScript that will be then reflected in your template and in your HTML markup, and it's truly reactive that way. I also would be it would be a problem for me not to mention Sapper. So I really think Sapper is the next step. Once you learn Svelte and the basics of this, Sapper is a really cool framework that gives you things that Svelte missed. So you get some SEO stuff. It's almost like they compare it to Next.js or Nuxt.js, where you get a bunch of things that you're missing. In fact, the Svelte out of the box doesn't have any way to do routing, and you have to use a third-party routing library. Svelte comes with routing built in, which it's really helpful. And as the introductory blog post mentions, it hydrates the server-side. It's basically server-side rendered, so it's really quick, and it has offline and other PWA characteristics. It has a code base to be really easy to grok and maintain. First-rate developer experience. I'm not going to go over Sapper in this, but I think anybody that's learning Svelte should really look at Sapper at some point and use that for their apps. I mean, you don't have to. You can certainly use Svelte and use some third-party routing and other libraries, but it looks like Sapper is the way to go, and they really do push it. It's not for everyone, but I think Sapper is really well worth looking into. Now, the way you start with Svelte is they recommend that you use one of their templates. So there's the svelte.js template, and use something called Degit, which is this library that helps you download these templates. And they have quite a few. They have like 3 or 4 different templates. If you look at svelte.js, there is one that has, let's see here, if we look at the different repositories and we just type in template here, you could see they have a Sapper template. They have a Webpack template. I believe by default it comes with Rollup, which is kind of like a different type of bundler. It has some custom elements one. It has a Sapper template for Webpack and Sapper template for Rollup. And it has a components one as well. When you're starting off with, probably just best bet is just to stick with the template that it recommends, which is this one, Svelte, and then using this Degit to get started. So I thought instead of me just jumping in the code, I'm going to give you some slides and then I'm going to jump in the code in and out. So what I did before I even started here is I used this npx command and I downloaded the app that it comes with. So here it is running. After you run npx, I did an npm install. I followed basically this instruction right here, cd change it to npm install, and then I ran npm run dev. So that's essentially this right here. And it's running. And what it gives you out of the box is you can look at the package.json file. It has some, obviously it's just this, all it is dev dependencies. You have the rollup like I was mentioning before, and it has this CLI, but it's really simple, and you do npm run dev to run the rollup-c-w, which rolls it up, and it also makes it so that if you make any changes, it automatically updates. Now the app.svelte file, it kind of comes in this format where you have the script at the top, and then you have the style tags, and then the markups at the bottom. And that's kind of the default. And each one of these is a different component. And we'll talk about a little bit why it says export let here in a second. So I just wanted to kind of show you this is the starting, where we're starting off at. I do have some slides. I actually borrowed these from Valentino Gagliardi. He did a presentation in July. So I'll make sure I link his slides in the description below, because I think these are really good, and I didn't want to go ahead and create my own or just take these without giving him credit. So let's go ahead and start, and let's talk about Svelte. Okay, so like I said, what is Svelte? It's not a library or framework. It's really a compiler. You're compiling down your code into something that will be compiled out, and it's just basic JavaScript at that point. But it'll have all the features that you like when you write with frameworks like Reactivity, components, styled components, things like that. Scope styles, that is. So it borrows a lot from React and Vue, but it's quite unique. So let's get started. Like I'd already mentioned, you use this digit to download this svelte.js template. And then the links app in this is the name of the app. You change to links app, and then you run npm install, or npm I is shorthand, and then npm run dev. And if you're looking at Sapper, it's pretty much similar, but it's just a different type of template you use. So Svelte components are the way you can kind of organize your app together. And of course, in modern day web frameworks, that's what we want to do. We want to take each different piece of information and stick them in their own components. So in this case, they all have the .svelte extension. And so this is what it would look like. You have the script tags, and then you have the markup, and then you would also have the styles in here if you had that. And now what's nice is this text here can be just put right into the markup by just putting this bracket here, squiggly bracket. And that's it. You don't have to do double squiggly brackets. It's not like mustache. It's not mustache syntax, just single squiggly brackets there. And that will then put it in there. So for example, here is the app svelte file that it created. And so if I wanted to create just a variable called Erik, hi from Erik, and let me make this a little smaller. I go down to the bottom, and I have a hello name. I could do hello too. And remember, I'm always used to putting double brackets, but single. And I called it Erik. So put Erik here. I'll save it. And I'll go back to this screen and actually have the app running here. Now it says hi from Erik. So that's all I had to do to add this in here. Pretty simple. And also, I would also recommend, if you're learning Svelte, there's this Svelte tutorial. That's at svelte.dev/tutorial. It's really simple to go through. It makes you type in a bunch of different commands, and it goes through all the basics of Svelte as well. So let's continue on. Using components, you can actually import components in really simply. Inside the script tag, you just put import, the name of the component from common or wherever the location is. And I also, by convention, I always put the capital letter for the component name. And then you can use it inside your component. So there's also props. So let me show you how to do that. So let's say here in our app, I don't know, I'm going to create a new folder called components. And then I'm going to create a new file, and I'm going to call it comp1.svelte. I'll just call it comp with capital M. To see that is comp svelte. And by the way, one thing you should do, Visual Studio Code has some really good extensions. So I'm using two of them. So first, look at the Svelte and use this one, the Svelte by James Birtles. It'll give you all the highlighting and syntax highlighting you need to get started with Svelte. And then I would also recommend downloading the Svelte 3 snippets. So I installed that extension as well in Visual Studio Code, and that makes things a lot easier because now you can just type in just a few letters and it'll automatically create. So those are the two extensions I'm using in Visual Studio Code. Otherwise, you will not have any highlighting, syntax highlighting. So I can actually do in here, I can do s-component format and hit tab, and it goes ahead and just adds this all in here. So it adds a script tag at the top, style, and then it tells you, hey, this is where your markdown goes. So I can go hello from component. I don't know, I can put let value equals 42. Doesn't really matter. And then I can just add that in there if I wanted to. Value. I'll call it val just to make more sense. Okay. So now it's all in here. Now I should be able to import it into my app. So I'll go back up to the top, import comp from, and I can go /components/comp.svelte. And now I should be able to use it inside my app here. So I'll just put it at the top, comp. And I'll just close it. All right, so let's see if it works. All right, hello from component 42. Now, one thing you can do also is you can pass props from one component to the other. So to do props inside this component, I actually have to use this keyword called export. And export will be used to export props, or basically components we're going to pass in, and then we can display inside here. So I can export, let's say called age. I'll call it let age. And then this age will now be available inside here. Age passed in is age. And if we do it like this, and we look back here, it says it's undefined. Since we haven't, we haven't put anything in here. I'll make this a little bigger. It says undefined, since we haven't put anything in there and we haven't passed anything. But let's pass something. So we can go back to our app svelte, and it's pretty easy. So we just put h2 here, and then we can put age, and let's put in, I don't know, 424. Now it says 40. It still says undefined. So one thing, actually what I'm doing here is the wrong one. I should have it on this one. Age equals 424. Okay, now it says 424. Cool. I could also, well, let's move on. So that's how you do props. There's a lot of little things you can do here. I'm getting ahead of myself. And by the way, if I'm going too fast, make sure you pause it at any time, rewind the sections, go over it again to make sure you understand. So as I just did before, you do use this export keyword and then the name of the variable, and now this will be the variable that's imported in. You can also put equals, so if you don't pass anything in, that it has a default value. So in this case, it'd be default text. So if I go back here, and let's say we go back to comp, actually app, and I don't pass any of the age in, save it, and I go back to the Svelte app, you can see it says undefined again. But I can put a default amount by just doing age equals 24 with the equals sign, and now it says 24. But I could still override that by just putting in, I don't know, age 32. Now it says 32. So just keep that in mind. Let's keep going. All right, passing props, we did that as I just showed you. You can pass some props as variables, like the let text. And there's a shorthand too. So if we, in this case, if I wanted to do a shorthand on this, I could create let age equals 32. And then if you put in age equals, and then put in this bracket here, and put in age, you can see it automatically, it's smart enough, the Visual Studio Code smart enough to automatically go in and set up for you. So instead of age equals age, you could just do age, and it works the same way. It still says 32. Okay, there's the spread operator. So if you have lots of different things you're passing in, you can pass them all in as an object and then do ... props. So that's pretty handy. And you can style the components. Anything inside the style, it's scoped by default, which is really nice. You don't have to put, style equals scoped or anything like you would do in Vue. Now, child components, these are going to still feel really similar if you did Vue because you use something called slot. So in React, you might do something like this where you have props.children, you have onSubmit, and then you pass in the input and button in this form. In Svelte, you add this slot right here inside this, and anything you type in this will be put in this slot. So in this case, this form, we have these two inputs, and that will be directed inside where the slot is. So let's take a look. Here's our component here. Here's our markdown. So if we put slot here, like this, and now we have inside our component, we have an opening and closing component now, like this. If we put data in here, hello world, and we go back to our app, you see now the hello world is at the top right here, and this is in between the data that was inside the component. So if we go back to the component, we have hello from component, age passed in, hello, so it's right in the middle. That's where we put the slot. But if we move the slot down, like below it, now it shows up below it. So this is the whole component. I guess I can make this, I don't know, if I put like a div here, let's see here, 3D, and let's see here, div. So if we did one, let's say border, 1 pixel solid red. Okay, see here's where the component is, and it moves where that slot is right there. So that's the hello world. So there's a lot more to slots, but we'll leave it at that for this beginner tutorial. So forms and events. So this is kind of the bread and butter of what you're going to do every day. You're always going to take user input, and you need to do things with it. So essentially you use this on keyword and colon. So this is really similar to the v-on if you're looking at Vue.js. And then you can put the handler, the DOM event, either submit or click or whatever it is. And then you can put in the method or the function, in this case, the name of it. So this is handle submit. So I can show you that. So if we put a button in our app here, I'm going to delete this just to make it a little more simpler. And oh yeah, I'm going to put a button. It's going to call it press me, but I want to just have an alert show up. So I can put a function handle click, and you can call it whatever you want. Handle click, and we're going to put alert clicked. And then what you can do on this button here is you put on colon click equals, and then the handle click. Now if we save that, so I just did on colon click handle click, and that should run our function and put an alert window. So come up to Svelte, press me. So here's our clicked event that we just added. Really simple, so it's pretty much the same as that v-on if you're in the Vue world. Event modifiers. So there's prevent default, stop propagation, once. Those are very similar if you look in the event handling for Vue.js. I think this is definitely something, once again, with slots that they took some inspiration from Vue on, where you have, or events. So v-on, we just saw that. But now look, the .stop, .prevent, and this .prevent is on Vue. On Svelte, it's called .prevent default. So it's like one more word. But instead of doing a dot, you kind of do it this way with this this bar, which will then allow you to do the prevent default. So you just put this bar and then whatever event modifier you want. So in this case, when you submit, the form won't actually submit. It'll prevent the default and actually handle submit instead. You can control the inputs too. So there's this bind value. So in Vue.js, you have this vmodel. So this is really similar to vmodel, and that's a way to kind of do two-way data binding. So if I wanted to, I'm going to go ahead and just make sure I don't care about this component right this second. I'm going to create an input on our app, and we're going to create something like let input text equals test. And then right down here, we do this bind colon and then the value equals, and then in this case, we're going to have the name that we set above, which we call input text. So we'll do input text, we'll save it, we'll go back, look at our app. So now the test is here, present input text. We can also present it here, I don't know, h4 input text. And now when we change it, it automatically reactively changes. Cool. So that's how and you can do this for checkboxes, select dropdowns. You can do it for a lot of things. And by the way, any attribute, you can also do the same thing where you can just equal and then the value in the brackets. All right, reactivity. So more often than not, you want your components needed some computed value or derived state. So like in Vue, we have computed properties. So you might see something like this in Vue where you have computed, and what this does is when any of the values inside the computed property change, it recomputes automatically because it's reactive. It also saves the values for you, caches them. So you can do reactive declarations completely differently in Svelte, but you can do the same thing by, like in this case, we wanted to double a value. So you might have something like, I don't know, going back to our example here, we have this alert clicked, but what happens if we wanted to add 1 to age? So we go age equals age plus 1. And then we're going to save it. And we're going to go back to our app. So now every time you press it, it should add age plus 1. And we're going to make sure we show age somewhere on the page. I don't know. Age. Okay, so it says 32. Now every time you press me, it goes up it goes up 1. So 42, whatever. What if we want to do a double that? So we were thinking, you might be like, oh, I can create something that doubles that. So I'll do let double equals age times 2. And then we'll just add, I don't know, another h5, and this will be double. Oops. And you'll see 64, but it's not changing. It's not reactive. So to make things reactive, we use this. This is the same kind of example. We use this $:, which is kind of weird if you've never seen it before. So if I instead of putting just const, I'll do $:, excuse me, into the double. And that should be reactive. So now when I press it, so you can see now it's reactively changing. That's the doubled value, 80. So now it's reactively changing. That's how you do reactivity. You can also add console statements that are reactive when things change, which is kind of neat. And then fetching and rendering data. In React, there was a good old component in mount, but it was kind of taken over by useEffect. So you don't really use lifecycle hooks in React nowadays if using hooks. But in Svelte Classic, they still use the modern day classic way. This is also in the same way we do in Vue. There's the way we do in Vue is we have the mounted and all the different lifecycle hooks, destroy. There's the same thing essentially inside Svelte. We have the same sort of lifecycle hooks too. And then finally, we're going to look at fetching data. So this is how you would do it in Svelte. You do this on mount. You can have it asynchronously, and you can await it in data, and that works fine. So this on mount, and I believe in Vue.js it's just called mounted, or let's see here, Vue.js lifecycle hooks mounted. So there's a bunch of them. If you look at the instances, mount, I think it's called, here it is. So there's before create, created, before mount, mounted. So in Svelte, they have something similar. They have on mount, on destroy, things like that. And list in React, so normally in React, you can only use ternaries or JavaScript statements except map and ternaries. In lists, you have this each. If you want to kind of go through an array of things. They also have if, they have else. In fact, if we look at the documentation, there's a bunch of them. Anytime you need to look at the documentation, make sure you just go to the API. You can see here is if, each, await, which is kind of neat. you can actually do, if you have values that are promises, you can put a promise and use it inside your markup with using the await in the brackets. You can also catch it. If you want to take HTML content and then put it inside your template, they have this @HTML, but it does tell you that it doesn't automatically sanitize it, so you should probably sanitize it first. There's even debug statements too, which you can put @debug. So that's pretty much how you do that. And I won't do an example of that. All right, so that's pretty much it. I would say this was a pretty quick overview of Svelte, but you can see it's just pretty simple to get up and running and started. It is lacking some things. Like I said, it doesn't have a router out the box. If you guys really like this video, I'll do a next video, and I'll do it on Sapper. So make sure you click that like button, click up the thumbs up button. Make sure you share this with friends. If I get enough people interested, I will certainly go and do another Sapper video, and we're going to look at routing and everything it offers, because it is pretty neat. Thanks. I really appreciate you guys watching. Take care.